This is TWiT.
Brown liquor time.
You have one dinner, one little dinner. You get 2 shows of whiskey out of it, right?
one big dinner and
big dinner.
a fairly impressive alcohol experience, I have to say.
Hangover there. So, and we talked about our favorite last week, which was that Maker's Mark Cellar Editions. But one of the others we tried that night was the Willett Purple Tops. Now, there's a bunch of different purple tops, but the particular one we had was the Willett Wheated 8. And the Willett Distillery is an interesting one because it's not ancient per se. The Willett Distilling Company was actually founded in 1936, so just a few years after Prohibition, by a gentleman by the name of Willett, Lambert Willett, in Louisville. Although they actually set up a distillery in Bardstown, which is due south of Louisville. It's one of the big collections.
The epicenter of the whole Kentucky bourbon trail or whatever.
I would argue there's 2, right? There's definitely the southern route, which is the Bardstown, Heaven Hills, that area, and then and then going east out of Louisville, you have the Frankfort region, and that's Sazerac, Pappy, all of those guys are over there. But be that as it may, the company has pretty much been owned by the Willett family one way or the other the whole time, although they've gone through some twitches. It's interesting also that the Willett family traces their lineage to pre-U.S. Revolutionary War, right? Like they've been in the U.S. a long time. And in fact, it was a Willett that moved to Kentucky as it was becoming a state. And they did get involved in whiskey in the 1800s, along with other key personalities or key families in the bourbon industry, like Moore and Frank, some of those original names. So the fact that they set up the distillery after Prohibition was more about the jobs during and come apart when Prohibition came into play, and now they were sort of coming back together. Now that it's over, built a new distillery, off they go. It doesn't mean they make money. They struggled along for a few decades making whiskey. When the energy crisis hit in the 1970s, they shut down the distilleries for making whiskey and started making ethanol, using straight corn to make gasohol, because that was going to be the new world, until they made the deal with OPEC and the gas prices went to normal, and then they pretty much just shut down in 1981. And it languished for a couple of years, except for the granddaughter, Martha. So this granddaughter had married a Norwegian man by the name of Evan Kulseveen, and they kicked it back. The facility had been shut down, was still in the family. Not only is it still in the family as well, they renamed it the Kentucky Bourbon Distillers. And what they're really doing is they're bottling all the old barrels that had been sitting for a few years since they had shut down in the late 70s to make ethanol. So they had a bunch of old, I would have loved to get my hands on some of this old bourbon that they were bottling. And so their bottling system became very good. And as they were starting to deplete their rack houses, because they still weren't distilling themselves, they started buying barrels from other distilleries and aging it in their rack houses. And ultimately ended up setting a few brands, some of which you may know of. By the 1990s, they were releasing Rowan Creek, Noah's Mill, Kentucky Vintage. They ultimately would also make whiskeys called Old Bardstown and Johnny Drum. Again, all sort of license deal, co-brand deals, different distilleries and so forth. It wasn't until the 2000s that they actually started cranking up the old stills again. And so as whiskey became hip and bourbon doubly so, in the 2010s, they built a visitor center, did some big renovations, so forth, and they restarted their old stills in 2012 and renamed back to the Willett Distillery from the KBD, Kentucky Bourbon Distillers. And ramp up they did. Within the first 2 years, they'd racked 10,000 barrels. By 2017, it was 25,000 barrels. They still do a bunch of contract bottling. And again, these are whiskeys you may have heard of. I've certainly had bottles of Black Maple Creek and Cunnock Ridge and Old Pogue. They do the bottling for Michter's, both their rye, their single batch, all of those. But they weren't well known for their own whiskeys until just the past few years when they made the Willett pot still. Because they have that original pot still from the 1930s. Their distillations, they have a single distillation stack, a column still, which is your quick up to about 60%. Then they have a doubler, which is a kind of simpler still that runs in conjunction with the column still while it's running, and then they finish in this old pot still. And so the first time I really met a Willett was their pot still edition, which literally they made a bottle look like a pot still. And that is not this product. They're now getting to better aged products. And so there's been a few family editions and so forth, but this is sort of their first real big expensive hit. So where pot still was very popular and did well, the Willett Wheated is very much like Maker's Mark. It's 65% corn, 20% wheat, 15% barley. It's barreled at 57%. It's bottled at about 54%. It's an 8-year bourbon, which is fairly unusual. They tend to be aged younger than that. Some would say it's actually closer to a 9, but this is all pretty subjective. If you can find it for MSRP, it's $250. You will not for MSRP. The last time I could find it at a specialty shop that had a few to ship, they were $600. And this is good. This is not that good. Like, come on, that's a lot. If somebody's going to pay for it for you, you should taste it. Don't turn it down.
It's good, but it's not $600 a bottle. Good is what you're saying.
No, even
not sure what would be
$50.
though.
What?
At 100,
what's with the
at
purple?
$100, this would be on my shelf. It's part of their family edition. So as they started doing this family, and you can find a few of their family reserves, they all have this purple wrapper on the top. What I find interesting with this particular bottle is the dark bottle with the gold lettering. So it's got a very distinct.
It's a kind of a pretty bottle. I mean,
it is attractive. It's hard to read in the dark. I'll tell you that much. Like,
I don't know what I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Well, we had some help with that, as I recall.
Yes, he had a light, so he'd hold the bottle out for us, and then he'd light it up.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yep.
How many different kinds of whiskeys did you guys drink?
I think it was just the two.
Okay.
We had cocktails first, and then we polished off a fairly nice bottle of wine.
I try to be as transparent as can be, but maybe we don't talk about this too much. I don't know. The food.
Dear Google, how to tell if my husband is having an emotional affair with
how to
whiskey?
remove this day from my history.
Well, and they had hangovers and more than one. The entire week we were essentially stopped.
Oh God! This is when I say I am glad I don't drink. I don't ever have to deal with this.
No, it impairs my judgment.
I was at dinner at my brother-in-law's last week, and he pours me a nice glass of whiskey, of some sort of good whiskey. It was delicious. Yep. It had a skull on it, I think. It was like a Halloween whiskey, I guess. But the top had a skull. But he was mostly proud of his balls. He had a special ice ball maker.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it did it in such a way that it was completely clear, which he says it doesn't melt as fast that way. So it's better.
You need whiskey stones, really, but that's a big thing.
No, the stones never get it cold enough. Stones are like lukewarm. I don't like stones. But
freeze transition keeps things cold.
He does say he bought some fancy thing to make these whiskey ice balls.
Yep. I've seen it. Yeah. A lot of high-end cocktail restaurants will do this.
It's hysterical.
Yeah. It's distilled water. It's fine.
Yeah. Rich, you say drink it neat like a man.
It's not that. You're paying a substantial amount of money for a flavor experience.
Yeah.
Why would you suppress it by making it cold?
Not just suppress it, but make it worse over time.
But I have heard, in fact, it might be you who told me, a little dash of water in a whiskey.
That's right.
Opens it up.
A little eyedropper. Just
It depends. So
get it to where you want it.
I hope when we talked, we did all that conversation about making Scottish whiskey, that there's water introduced to whiskey all of the time. And there is an argument for there's certain congener compounds that will only break down with additional water.
Yeah.
That's the argument. There's also a point to make that at a certain level of alcohol, it's like a very bright light. Even those other things there, you can't see them. So adding a little water can allow other flavors to go up.
It's like sushi. If the guy makes you a little sushi piece of sushi. You don't dip it in something. You take. He's given it to you perfect.
Well, so what you're saying is those ice balls are like sunglasses for your whiskey.
They're suppressing the whiskey, and maybe that makes you more comfortable. Listen, drink your whiskey the way you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask me, how do you like?
I was embarrassed because I don't drink, and I kind of went, I'm not, but I had to have a sip because I don't drink religiously, but I don't drink, and I had to have a sip, and it was tasty, but and he had very nice ice balls, but
the first hit is always going to be the loudest, right? Like there's a strong argument for a second sip, just because it's going to taste different.
That's the one where I lose my hearing, and then the world goes.
And the fifth, sixth, and
seventh. The second sip was good. More is going to be better, right? Like nothing.
That's true.
Like excess.
Nothing, right? Nothing tastes better than excess, Leo.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said something. I can't remember what I said, but she said, "Did you just say you had a lot of acid?" I said, "Yes, I did, but that's not what I was talking about."
Right. And don't call me Shirley. Is this the hospital? Yes, it is, but it has nothing to do with this conversation.
Okay, Willett Wheated 8-year bourbon. So the rule is if somebody offers it to you, don't turn it down, but don't pay $250 a bottle for it.
Yeah.
Much less 600.
Much less 600.
And very likely, like Pappy and others of these special editions, you will only find this in high-end restaurants at absurd prices.
Yeah.
Right.
Very nice.
I can't wait to do it again. I want to make this mistake again. I'd like to do it right next time. Actually, I feel like I did do it right this time.
I wanted to get past this particular meal with these two whiskeys because they were both experience and new experiences for both of us, and that was great.
It's nice.
I wanted to get past it as well, but also just like not on a gurney.
Yeah,
would have been good.
I do imagine that there aren't many times that Mr. Campbell gets a new experience, so that's a good thing.
Good thing. And you expect next week I will be focused on a more approach brown liquor or something.
Next week I will not be here, so make it as approachable as you want.
Are you going to Providence?
I am going on a retreat that involves no digital anything. I even had to replace my Apple Watch with a Timex.
I see.
So I will will be out of touch.
If you need help, blink twice, and then send a telegram or something.
No, I don't know. I don't know how you reach.
I'll read you my Google newsfeed. You can find out what's going on.
If it's another Sam Altman weekend, I am screwed.
Where is this taking place?
Yeah, it's actually it's just up the road a piece. Jason Howell did it a year ago. Then my wife did it last month. It's it's a psychological. I don't know.
You're going to the Sphere in Las Vegas, aren't you?
Yes, I admit it.
That's all you do. You're going to see
worship at the feet of Bono.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't be here. I can't remember who's I think Mike is doing the show. He likes to do Windows Weekly. But I will be back the following week. So please do not lament.
I should pick something special for Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Micah drinks either, by the way.
Yeah.
If you do pick something, make it gluten-free.
Is this? Are you in Utah? What's happening?
When you get to a certain age, Paul, and you'll know this soon, you don't want to lose any more brain cells. It's like, okay, I think I'm going to need them all now, and I just don't want to do anything to accelerate what is already falling.
I might
apart.
have already passed so far past that point that I don't really care anymore. But I can see that.
You and your wife have a lovely tradition. You have a nice mixed cocktail, which she invents. You listen to music. Right. I see you. The first thing you set up in your new home is the music center, so you can have your music nights. I think that's a beautiful thing. I like that.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I don't drink to deprive my wife of exactly that pleasure.
Well,
I'm just that petty. No.